All right, let's give it another. We'll start at 12:35. So, and thanks everybody for joining us today. Okay, so we have some folks who are unmute. Maybe you'd like to mute yourself for now so that it's not going to interrupt. Thank you. So I'm going to ask for our organizers, the Micron team ladies, to please take a note at those who might have accidentally unmute themselves, so you can help to mute us so that we make sure that we are getting the right voices through. Awesome, thank you so much. Welcome everyone. Today this is afternoon time, lunchtime here in Singapore, and it's actually evening time and late time to some of our special guests who have joined us today, so thank you for that. This is SWE Singapore's second series on professional development. And today is a really special day. Today we are actually sharing all about developing an attractive abstract. It is a mouthful, I know. I'm running through it as well. So I think there are a couple of things that as the MC for today, I will go through is what you need to know about this particular WE conference here. So I think, of course, we need to know the date is that you need to submit the abstract. What are the resources available? Actually, the SWE website has a lot of resources for the WE conference itself that you can go read through and find out more. And of course, you have speakers here who are past speakers who you can tap onto and ask questions as well. And I think the other side is to understand, because the SWE conference is a huge conference, so understand the differences between the track, the learning levels, as well as the areas of focus that you can go for. And maybe take a look at the scorecard so that you know how to tune your abstract towards getting the best scores for it. And lastly, how to probably write a good speaker's bio. Okay, next please. All right, so this is the timeline that you have if you are keen to submit for the WE conference. By 14th of March, you should actually submitted it onto their website, the abstract that you would like to go for. So in it, you also will be choosing the tracks, the specialized areas of focus, and the learning levels as well. And between March to April, that's where the team from SWE would review it for conference stuff. And all these details are actually on the SWE website. So if you can take a look at it, we'll also be sending this across to the participants who join us on the call today as well. So you can refer to this. But take note of this 14th of March. So if you have any ideas, past projects that you want to talk about, do start drafting stuff already for it. Okay. Next, like I said, the SWE website is chock full of resources that you can use to help you as you draft out your abstract and go for this conference. So I would say highly recommend for those who are really interested, right, to really go into participate for look at the guidelines as well as the overview. While we are at that, maybe I almost forgot, I think the team would actually smack me over my head, is that we actually want to know how many of you on the call join us because you want to submit a conference abstract. So maybe let's put on a poll for now. Just take a pause here. We have the team put on a poll. So let us know, are you joining us because you're really, really interested to submit an abstract for the upcoming conference? Or it's more of a curiosity that you're looking into using some of the learnings here for future conferences that you can participate in? So click on the polls. Okay, so I'm going to try it myself. Okay. All right. Can everybody see the poll right now? Okay, we do, right? So it's interesting. So a lot of people are actually, a majority are uncertain whether to take part in the conference and submit an abstract for it. So no worries. Hopefully that, in this session here, we can help to ease some of the fears and the uncertainties. And by the end of it, you will be 100% certain that you're going to take part in this and submit the abstract for it. So moving on. The next slide, please. So I talked about earlier about the different tracks that's available for the WE'22 conference. and they are 6 different areas. They have more details within the guidelines itself, which you can go read through, and I would recommend it. But in general, they are bucketed into these areas. And for learning levels, I think this is the usual ones that so that they know, right, whether your information is more for a basic level or for people who have heard of it or for advanced, because I think this works the best if you are going into technical tracks so that you have something to explain. They would know whether the information that you're sharing has a different level and people need to go in with some background understanding. Specialized areas of focus is, I think, an option. If you have a particular area that you want to reach out to, then you can sort of frame it under all of these areas. But you can put it under NA, so it's mostly for a generalized population who join the conference as well. But if you're specific, like if your particular project is for career development for people who want to pivot their career at a later stage, maybe after they have been in a company for 20 plus years, then you can also choose that as well, if only if you're very clear of it. Okay, next please. And we talk about the scorecard. So all the abstract submissions, all the submissions in general for WE'22 are based on scorecard. So I think it's a very clear, defined way so that you know when you are developing the abstract what you need to include in. So I think all the way from title to learning outcomes have to be quite clear. So it's a very results-driven sort of conference. So you need to be able to call out that within the abstract that you submit as well. So in total, you will try as much as possible to score 35 points. And I think based on the point structure, the committee within WE'22 will let you know whether you're invited back as a speaker or not. But this is also will be the similar scoring card we use for also our own local abstract share conference that we are hosting. So those who are submitting it can also submit to us as well, and we will help to do that scoring on our side too. Okay, next. Okay, and other than the description that goes into and the details that goes into the yes, the slides will be shared so I can see a pop-up on that. The other than the portion where you will be submitting the abstract as well, I think there is also some details that you need to take note of, which is the speaker's qualification, how clear your writing and your perspective. I think clarity and perspective is something that 2 of our speakers from Hoffman Agency will give some details about, so I'm not going to share that, and they will give some tips and tricks along that way. Okay, next please. Okay, and I think one good way to really showcase your relevancy as a speaker is really in your bio. So make sure that your bio is not a generic bio, and as much as possible, edit it towards what you are trying to share there. So if you are trying to submit for an area on advocacy in terms of building, advocacy within STEM, do call those out within your bio so that you share your relevant experience here. Okay. Next, please. And with that, we have a short little video for you, everybody, to take a look up. This is last year's conference. Maybe that will excite you to be part of this.
To say that I am excited to start this year's conference is a true understatement. The year leading up to this conference has been full of hope, frustration, great expectations, and constantly pivoting our plans in order to host a WE conference that is safe, meaningful, and beneficial for everyone involved.
We are our people. We recognize the power of diversity, the power of inclusion, and as a female executive in this industry with an industrial and systems engineering degree, I personally understand I personally understand the importance of inspiring a young lady, a young woman, a little girl to be all that she can be because you've told her that she can and you've given her the opportunity to do so. And this is why
purpose because I believe that we all have talents and special gifts that allow us to make a unique difference. Authenticity, because in my career especially, my style was very different than many of the leaders I met early in my career, so I sometimes worried about what that meant for my future.
I hope that each of you leave this conference with new friends and connections. And equally important, a broader support team to help you on your career journey. Finding your team of mentors, cheerleaders, and advocates is what events like this and organizations like SWE are all about.
Arthritis, and I saw him miss out on lots of his childhood, and so I've always wanted to make sure that I could help create something or, you know, make better therapeutics that would.
I think they did a really interesting job during their time that wasn't made for them at all, and they really persevered and just really overcame those boundaries that they faced during their time.
Engineering inspiration is Chloe. She has been my mentor for over 5 years, and she actually inspired me to pursue civil engineering.
I'm an environmental engineer, so a lot of my engineering inspiration is just from the earth.
Wow, I hope you are as excited about the conference that I am. So thanks to the BD team for putting together the video of the conference in 2021. Sometimes I forget the year. Okay, so up next, I have two really special guests. They are personal friends and ex-colleagues from the Hoffman Agency, Maureen Sung and Isabel DeMalt. I think I pronounced that correctly. They will share with us from a communications professional perspective and working with many clients on helping them making content more compelling, and how they can, you know, take those same insights and help you make your abstract a lot better. So off to Maureen and Isabel.
Okay, so thanks so much, for letting us share our insights with you. So before we start, I think just to give a bit of context, the Hoffman Agency actually focused on technology exclusively. So we've worked with actually a lot of both BD and HP were clients of ours. Evonik, so from chemical engineering to oil and gas, right through to hardcore technology, we've covered it. So, we have both Izzy and myself talking through our insights, having worked with a lot of engineers who've become senior executives in how they tell stories. So over to Izzy to start.
Awesome, thanks, Mai. So absolutely, I think we were really excited when Bridget and team invited us to talk today, because we see the creation of a great abstract as very similar to what we do in our day-to-day work, which is essentially distilling really long, juicy, content-heavy stories into something that is small, easily digestible, and very tangible to the reader. We thought that a good place to start today in terms of thinking about storytelling within an abstract is what would we deem a good abstract in terms of if you were to compare it to something that you see in more regular day-to-day life. So first, we thought that a good abstract actually acts a little bit like a trailer. So if you think about going to the cinema or the movies and seeing all the films that they advertise at the beginning, what's really great about trailers is essentially that they give you the snippets, they give you the highlights, but they really up the anticipation and the ante for what that story ultimately could lead to. They leave you wanting more because they don't necessarily give you the answer to how the story ended. So that makes you want to visit the cinema again to be able to actually watch that film. A really good abstract should do the same thing. It should give some strong, powerful punch points in terms of what your talk is going to be about, what topic you're trying to address. But at the same time, it's supposed to be something that entices. So it doesn't want to give too much away. It wants to leave people asking, well, what was the answer to that question? Where does that talk ultimately lead? A good abstract also acts a little bit like an elevator pitch, because at the end of the day, you are selling yourselves within an abstract as a thought leader representing a certain topic. So an abstract should get across key messages the really big things that you want to be highlighting, the big takeaways, and should give a rough understanding in terms of what outcomes someone can expect. I know that in particular for the WE conference that there are separate sections in terms of descriptions and learning outcomes. Those learning outcomes are really, really important to make sure that the audience understands what they're going to be getting out of the session. But finally, and maybe something that people don't necessarily associate with abstracts, is that an abstract should provoke a reaction. And so in a similar way to when you go to an art museum and they say that good art, whether you have a really good reaction or a bad reaction to it, the point of good art is that you have a reaction in the first place, that you don't remain a neutral bystander and you're just watching it. An abstract should do the same thing. It should really draw people in, and love or hate what the question is that you're looking to answer within the talk. It should make people really think about it. Make people think, oh, that really resonates with me, or oh, that really challenges my view on a certain topic, etc. So a good abstract will really push people to think beyond, yeah, I've heard this talk many, many times before, and make them think, wow, that's really inspirational, or wow, that really goes against the grain and goes against the status quo. But an abstract as well, as you will all, I'm sure, be very familiar with, is not very long. So we're looking at playing with, say, 150 words, 200 words, to be able to sell a concept. In other words, when we're looking at an abstract, we want to be culling quite a lot and really thinking about where do we want to prioritize our content so that it has the greatest impact. So we thought we'd leave today with a few tips and tricks in terms of where we would prioritize and where we would take things away. First, let's go with the positive side of things. So where do we want to focus? Cool. So number one, acknowledgement of your track. So Bridget was talking a little bit earlier in terms of the various areas that you can be looking at, not just in terms of the different categories, but also levels of learning and any specialized areas of focus should they be applicable to what you talk to. You don't want to necessarily be really, really in your face, this abstract belongs in, say, the innovation category, but you do want to make sure that your abstract has a nod towards, I've understood the requirements of my category or the requirements of the learning level that I'm trying to target, and I'm making sure that this is appropriately targeted for those people. Then moving on, and a really good abstract should tie your topic to something that is a bigger industry trend or a debate or a conversation. So in other words, you want to kind of start outside, start to something that is a broad topic and work your way in terms of where you're specifically going to be focusing on. We tend to find that the bigger picture means that immediately people who are reading can see something tangible, something that they recognize and something that they understand in your abstract. But then when you work your way in, this is where you start developing that sense of originality and unique perspective that is also very important with these. Headline stats, facts, figures, etc. definitely are really important to quantify the importance of the topic that you've chosen. So we would definitely recommend including one so that people get a sense of gravitas. But we don't want it to be too formalized, as in we don't want it to be too much, this is a stat and this is a stat and this is a stat and this is a stat. There also needs to be something about the human element. So what does it actually mean for real people? What does it mean either in terms of your own personal experiences and what you're hoping people might be able to read into the journey that you have been on? Alternatively, depending on the topic that you're looking at, it could be what your chosen topic could mean in terms of impact on people within your industry. So really think about not just if we're talking about a big trend, going into the nitty-gritty of that trend and going into the really technical aspects of that trend, but always bringing it back to how is this actually going to impact on a big level humanity and mankind, but on a smaller level my colleagues, my friends, other women looking to get into the industry, other young girls who are aspiring to be in the industry, etc. You really want to make sure that there's an element of that, a nod to that. Key takeaways. So we mentioned learning outcomes earlier. This is really, really important. You can use both your description and the learning outcomes to kind of give a sense. Learning outcomes is where you go for the elaborate descriptions, but even within the descriptor, kind of like what I was saying about the movie trailer, you want to have that little line that entices someone to want to read more, to want to know more. Finally, and we'll delve into what we mean by simple and colorful language in a little bit more detail further in the slides, but you want to keep things conversational. So instead of thinking about this like a technical paper, even if you're going down the technical track, you want to be thinking about how you might explain your topic to a parent or a friend or someone who is less familiar with your industry, with your line of work than others might be. Because we'll find that even within the industry, there will be varying levels of understanding and varying levels of background knowledge. So it's good to start on a place where everyone can understand. So we thought, instead of just showing you different tips and tricks though, it might be helpful to go through a past example that was approved by the WE conference and show you why we think that this abstract in particular is strong. I would love to add as well that we actually came up with this slide here before we saw the abstract that we've included, and it just happened to tick all the boxes. So it was a really great example. You'll see a few highlights here in terms of words that we think we should be focusing on. But if we start right in the title, 3 actionable steps. This is good because it immediately gives you a sense of key takeaways. You're going to get 3 key takeaways from this talk. Here, in the first line, the 4th Industrial Revolution has dawned on us and will radically change the 12 trillion global manufacturing sector. 4th Industrial Revolution, this is, I think, a concept that everyone understands and ties to something that's a bigger industry trend, bigger industry conversation. Radically is colorful language, aka it's something that is exciting, is a little bit more, it's not just your day-to-day, this isn't just something that's kind of gradually happening, no, it's radical, it's revolutionary, etc. So it kind of ups the ante, ups the excitement. The 12 trillion is a headline figure, so we've got a good stat there that gives us the sense of gravitas and importance. Here again, we've also got an idea of the physical, digital, and biological domains. This is both really nice, colorful language, because it's not something that you would see in day-to-day reading, but it also ties back to the bigger picture. So looking at how things like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, data analytics are all tying up into this 4th Industrial Revolution. In the second paragraph, we've got that very important link back to the human element. So we're looking here, our Industrial 4.0 journey starts with imparting tools that can help our people. This is really important. So we're tying it back to what is the impact on society, what is the impact on humanity. Better embrace and apply these technologies to drive digital transformation. So note in the learning path that this speaker has chosen innovation and disruption as their track. Digital transformation immediately ties back to the idea of innovation and disruption. So note though that they didn't use the words innovation or disruption to tie back to the track. They just made sure that there was something that was very clearly aligned to the topic that they were looking at. Here in the third paragraph, similar thing. At the end of the mass production era, would usher in a new age of mass customization. So this idea of disrupting the status quo, but again, it's also very colorful language. Again, it's not a sentence that you would typically read in day-to-day. And then finally, right at the end, there's a very clear hint towards some of the key takeaways that people can be expecting from this talk. But of course, this speaker then did also submit some very clear learning actions where they went into more detail, learning outcomes where they went into more details. So a clear vision and mission, keeping up to date on mega trends, followed by technologies and workforce upskilling. So great summary in terms of what people can be expecting. Brilliant. So with that, in terms of good example, I'm going to pass over to Maureen to talk a little bit more about what colorful language means in terms of our own definition.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to just skip along a little bit because I am conscious of time. But Izzy had pointed out, in the previous abstract, certain key elements that make a story stand out. So I think let's make this very clear. We are telling a story when we submit an abstract. And this story, how compelling it is going to be the linchpin in terms of determining whether your your speech or your presentation makes the cut. Now, I think the thing with us women in particular, we tend to be very modest with the words we want to use. You know, we rely on facts, we rely on our achievements, and we just stay there. But if you see from the abstract before, it was inspirational, it was bold. We talked about, you know, things that would radically change things. I think there's confidence. So with this, look at sound bites that you can use that is authentic to you also. So I think what is very critical based on everything that I've seen so far in terms of submissions, there is an honesty and authenticity. So what you want is superlatives maybe, but you know, with gravitas, because you have achieved these things that are passionate also. So when you are actually presenting, you know, it may be words on a page, but if there is passion that shines through, I think that adds that little bit of shine to what you want to be putting out. And then ultimately, you'll see in the previous abstract, there was a clean beginning and a clean end. So it starts out by what you want to achieve, but at the end, there's also a little bit of a summary. So I hope that gives you a quick overview. So moving along, let's just show how, okay, so Jack Ma is not very visible these days, but nobody would say that he wasn't a good storyteller. And he took what he uses, you know, his personality to create a very interesting analogy. So if you read here, eBay may be a shark in the ocean, but I'm a crocodile in the Yangtze River. If we fight in the ocean, we lose, but if we fight in the river, we win. So the very interesting thing is he is up against the big guys, right? Global guys. At this time when he made that pronouncement, he was just scaling up. But he brought the fact that he knows what he's talking about from his region, his experience, and that made it all that much more compelling. But not to say that we follow this kind of verbiage for the abstracts that you're pulling together. It has to work for you. But there are very unique insights, you know, that you can bring to the table that we feel would and should go into these abstracts. Okay, so finishing off, a few key takeaways I think that we want to leave you with. All right. So remember, 150 words is not a lot, as we all know. You know, try not to focus on, I need to stuff as much as I can in it. All right. The hardest pieces of work to write are really the shorter ones. So you'd have to be very disciplined in terms of focusing on what are the 3 key things I need to be getting in there, for example. In terms of explainers and descriptors, I think it should be really simple and spend that time to find, you know, the perfect word that would encapsulate what you're trying to communicate. Let's stay away from industry buzzwords, you know, things like new normal, right? Hybrid workforce and that sort of thing tends to be overused. If we can find something a little bit different, why don't we focus on that? Corporate spiel is another thing. So there's a tendency always to try and go back to the motherhood statements of what the organization stands for and that sort of thing. You know what? That's not going to cut it unless there is an element in there that's going to help with getting your abstract noticed. And then ultimately, focus also on achievable outcomes, okay? Because there are awarded points based on that, as Bridget had walked you through. So let's be very clear, as in the abstract that Izzy had walked through. Finally, as engineers, we tend to focus on a lot of jargon and acronyms. I think try and stay away from as many jargon and acronyms as possible, because it really doesn't do very much good. Okay, people know what IoT is, people know what AI is, but when you go into things like, you know, ERP and full stack, etc., it can get very technical and then it loses a bit of its luster. Yeah, so 10 minutes isn't a lot of time to cover off all the points we want to share, but hopefully this gives you a very quick overview of what you should be looking out for. Yeah, so finally, just remember, there's always a story for you to tell in your abstract. So make it count, focus on the key things you want to get across, and be very disciplined about cutting off what is not necessary. And I think a good way to do this is to get as many people as you can to kind of sound out, review your abstract, you know, have the teams that are helping you with your submissions, go through it with them. And if in doubt, you know, you can reach out to the SWE people as well. All right. So lastly, if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to us. This is something that we're quite passionate about. You can find us on LinkedIn, or you've got details here. Happy to help. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen and Isabel. I personally think that was really, really useful. So the slides will be shared via email on the later date, and we also will be putting out the recordings in the SWE Singapore website as well for those who might have missed some parts of it and want to re-listen and look into what Isabel and Maureen has shared. So thank you both. Now we swiftly move on to introduce a couple more speakers. And here is my colleague here at HP as well, Patty Keller, who's also a past speaker at the WE conference, and she will be sharing with us today how she turned her experience raising twins as a mother and use it into a abstract and a story where she was, I think she shared during the conference, and it was really well taken. So that is something that Patty is very familiar with, and she shared with us a couple of times. So I'm going to give her the time today to talk about her experience at the WE conference and how she talked about this story. And so Patty, off to you.
Very good. Thank you, Bridget. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the concept of TED Talks, but I'm a TED Talk junkie. I love TED Talks, especially the good ones. You can get a new idea, a new concept, something completely that you had no familiarity with previously in just 10 to 12 minutes. They're very entertaining, informative, and personally, I find them an excellent role model for presentation skills in general. I'm always in awe of a good presenter, and it's something that I'm personally always at work on in my own career. So in 2019, the SWE conference was going to be in Anaheim, California, which for those of you that are familiar with the west coast of the US is a short plane ride from Corvallis. And so the Corvallis women, the SWE organization in Corvallis, decided, hey, we really would like to have a good showing. It's close by, it's sort of in our own backyard. It would be great if the women in Corvallis HP could have a strong showing at the SWE conference. So around that same time, I had sort of been bouncing some ideas around in my head about my work and my life and my mom as twin, my job at home as a mother of twins, and how those two things sort of were colliding or kind of coming together, common themes that I saw coming together. So I submitted an abstract for what they called the lightning round. I believe it was called the lightning round. It's been a few years now. But the expectation for that is that your talk or your presentation is only 20 minutes. And it's a wide variety of topics. Pretty much any topic can be submitted. And, they're not the deep technical presentations, but they're rather broad and more around self-help or personal development. And I really felt like this was my opportunity to try my hand at doing a TED Talk since I'm such a huge fan of them. And it also helped HP show up well at the conference at the same time. So I submitted my online abstract. I believe it was a pretty quick submission with just a few, maybe a paragraph with a few bullets. I focused on the learning outcomes, and I think being really clear about what it is that you want to talk about is very important, as the other gals mentioned. And I think part of the advantage that I had was it was pretty unique. They probably didn't get a lot of other submissions about women talking about raising twins and how it related to their job as an engineering manager. So I think the uniqueness of it was also quite attractive or potentially attractive to the committee. So it was accepted, obviously, and I prepared and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And so if anyone is interested and would like some help with the practice and feedback around doing the preparation for the actual presentation, once you get through the abstract, it's an area of passion for me. In fact, I've spent 5 hours over the course of the last 2 weeks teaching a class with Terry Mattoon on presenting to executives. So it is an area of interest and passion for me, and it's something that I'm always personally working on, and would love the opportunity to try to help others if there's something that I can do to assist. But in the end, I gave the presentation. It was really very fun. I enjoyed it quite a lot. It was very rewarding to see my own life experiences and how I kind of merged my home life with my work life. And it really did resonate, I think resonated pretty well with some of the other women. I had people stopping me at the conference, thanking me for, sharing. I had people come up to me after the fact. So it was very satisfying, rewarding to see that the topic and the content did resonate with other people. So I would say if you have an interesting experience, a hobby, or some other sort of passion, really look at how you might consider the lightning sessions. It's a much, less intimidating than trying to do a full hour on some sort of technical topic, but I found it to be a great experience. And the other perk, not to forget, is if you submit an abstract and you're accepted and you're a speaker at the conference, you will definitely get your travel approved through HP. So that's the other benefit of being a speaker at the conference. So I'm happy to help and answer any questions that anybody might have.
So maybe Patty, there's one question coming in. What advice would you give to somebody who has stage fright?
I think practice is very important, but I also think that scripting what you want to say is equally as important. Not everyone, many people have different approaches. My approach is to write it out word for word. So I can figure out exactly how I want to word everything, and then I practice it. And then when I get to the point where I'm ready to deliver the presentation, I'll go to bullets. I know the content well enough at that point in time that I don't need to read a script and I can make it sound more natural, but I will have bullets that remind me of what are my next points that I want to make. And so it is an investment, but I think if you invest in that self-development for this conference, it will help you quite a lot in your career as well. And like I said, I spent 5 hours over the last 2 weeks talking about executive presence and how critical it is to how you show up in your organization. So if you spend the time and you invest in this, it will do nothing but help you in the professional world. And I saw somebody make a note about recording yourself. That is really important. Either have a coach, somebody who's willing to listen to you, or record yourself. Because one of the things that we often get tripped up on is all of the filler words, the the so, the basically. And if you record yourself and you specifically listen for it, you'll be much more cognizant of it and much less likely to use all of those filler words. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about abstract. So I don't mean to derail the conversation.
No worries, but I think people want to go into submitting an abstract, with the idea in mind that they will get the speaker opportunity, right? So when that happens, they also want to be prepared for it. So I think that's why some of the answers are coming forth and some of the questions are coming forth basically on those as well. But yes, Thank you, Patty, for really sharing this. And I think you have given really, really useful tips beyond just an abstract, right? I think what really made your story and your abstract stand out was that uniqueness. Twins and engineering manager, who knew, right? Both can correlate and actually make the difference. I think that's something we can all try to look for as inspirations when we are submitting our abstracts. So thank you, Patty, with that.
One last comment. The children and the boys in that picture are now first-year university students. So there you go.
Wow. Right. We can't call them cute now, so it'd be a bit inappropriate. But yes, look at them grow up. Okay. Thank you, Patty. So I think let's move on to our last two speakers. We have from BD as well joining us this time around, first time as part of our organizing committee within the professional development series, the ladies from BD. We have Kelly Horn and Samantha G, who are actually they organized the submission for the various speaking opportunities and getting themselves really into WE conference. So they are here to share with us some of their insights and their experience there. So to you, Kelly and Samantha.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll chime in before I dive in a little bit on SWE, if you do get accepted for a speaker, will help you with the process, not only your content and the slides and give you those kinds of tips and tricks, but it's a joy to get to be a part of the process, because you will grow not only as a speaker, but as a presenter, and gain those additional skills that that Maureen and Isabel touched on a little bit, but they'll give you more and more tips specifically and directly for you. But thank you so much for this opportunity. Like Bridget shared, Samantha and I are located here in the US, and we organize BD's submissions with another partner of ours for the SWE conference, and not just WE'22, but also the WE locals. So consider and remember that even if your submission is not accepted for WE'22, it was not a waste. You can certainly use that and apply for future conferences in the form of WE Local, as well as WE'23, and continue to modify and morph that. So it's definitely something that is not a waste. Next slide. So why should you submit a speaker proposal? Some of the things we've touched on already. This is going to help you increase your professional visibility and build your resume, both internally at your current companies and externally. This is a great branding opportunity for you to advertise on your LinkedIn and other profiles, your resume, and other aspects related to your career. It's going to do that expansion of your skill set, like we've touched on, and maybe getting past that fear of presenting in front of others. And I would highly encourage maybe starting with those lightning talks or snap, I think they're called snap talks now. So those are ones that just are 10 minutes, and you can even still do it with a friend and be up on the stage with somebody for 10 minutes and tackle a presentation and expand that skill set and eliminate some of the fear factor that exists. We love the idea of sharing something you're passionate about. We talked a little bit about scripts earlier. What's neat is when you're passionate about something, it just rolls off the tongue. You've got all sorts of stories you want to tell, and stories are what people will remember. They're visual pictures that people then can relate and bring back into their own lives and connect back with you and your key learnings and that you're sharing with the audience. It gets others interested in your company, in our case BD, and working where we're doing that. and just like Patty said, it can reduce your cost of attending WE'22 or guarantee your ticket to WE'22, which is really, really awesome. I've been a part of that journey and appreciated the fact that I don't need to ask too many questions and answer too many questions about why I need to go to this conference. It's pretty understood that I need to go in order to present, and I'm going to represent my company. So a couple of reasons here for why you should be considering submitting this proposal. On the next slide, what we've put together for you to reference later is some ideas of topics. These are not titles, but these are some areas you might consider, and they may spark some ideas for you as you think about, what could I be presenting on? What are some unique elements that I know about this area or topic, about working on global teams? I mean, look at this team that put together this session here tonight and the effort and involvement that it took to get this program off the floor. And that's working on global teams. And so what are some unique aspects that you can share and bring to the conversation? Sam is now going to go over the next slide.
So some of our best practices, I think, have already been touched on by some of the previous speakers, but definitely keep that scoring rubric in mind. It's very important. And I think as you begin your abstract, you should consider it, but also at the end, come back and do an assessment to see, have you hit all these key areas? Are you focusing where you need to be focusing? Also really make sure that your description matches your content. A common complaint is that these are mismatched. And so attendees go into your session expecting a certain outcome or expecting certain content, and they're disappointed because that isn't necessarily what they leave the session with. Additionally, SWE really encourages participation by speakers from backgrounds that are underrepresented in engineering and technology. I think many of us are aware of this, but specifically when submitting panel style sessions, consider the diversity of perspectives that you're getting from your panelists. So this can be things such as having associates or speakers that are different levels within your company, obviously different backgrounds, different geographical locations. All of those are very important as well, but there are a lot of ways to provide unique perspective and a variety of perspectives. So consider that on your panel as well. We already touched on the intermediate and advanced content, but this is something that can make you stand out just because there is less of it. And having others review your proposal and avoiding a lot of links to your company and those sales pitchy types of words that were mentioned earlier is also a great tip. Next slide, please.
And before I move to the next slide, I just attended the CPC conference where all of the CPC sponsors are attending. CPC stands for Corporate Partnership Council, which many of the companies here on the line are part of. And they specifically shared to really focus on those learning outcomes. Not only do the attendees look at those, but the judges, even though it's still scored at 5 points, it's probably considered a little bit more higher ranked than 5 points, even though it's only 5 points. So really look at those and make sure that they're locked and loaded into good outcomes that resonate well and speak to the other elements of importance and uniqueness.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kelly. So some other internal learnings that we've had, as Kelly mentioned, we've both presented and we've helped coordinate these activities for BD. So we have had really good success with our BD submissions where we have had cross-company collaborations. So we've done this with panel sessions mostly, and we have worked with other partners, mostly within the CPC that Kelly just mentioned, to create these abstracts and then ultimately to speak at the conference. Additionally, the more unique your topic is, the better chance you have at success. So an example here would be that there are fewer people submitting in the areas of health and wellness compared to working through a pandemic. So while both are really relevant, and of course, both are important and needed, there will likely be many abstracts that are submitted on working through a pandemic. And so really differentiating yourself there is going to be key as compared to something where your topic is very unique and there won't be a lot of other people that are trying to speak on that same topic. Additionally, we always write out our submissions in a Word document and then copy and paste them into the submission form. It makes it a lot easier to make changes. And if you're asking for feedback from other friends or other colleagues, it's a great way to be able to easily send them your information and get that feedback and avoid losing information because of web page timeouts, which I think has probably happened to all of us at some point. Unique titles and learning objectives can also increase your likelihood of your abstract being submitted and increase just the interest in your session. And I think we already had some really great tips on how to do this, so that was fantastic. And then also back to kind of the learning outcomes that Kelly mentioned, it's really important to consider what attendees can take away from your session and use that to help guide your abstract and then, if selected, your session content. These takeaways are very helpful, not only to guide you, but this also helps with some of the mismatch that we mentioned and those really clear learning outcomes. I think it's all connected. So I'll turn it back to Kelly, who has a few more comments on this to close out.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. I think that in general, the guidance here and the formulas that you've received tonight are great for you to follow. But it doesn't mean that there's not an organic type of process that you can certainly follow in the brainstorming and compilation of your content. But I think that remember that each of us is unique and each of us and our experiences are unique. So just because you think that it's common knowledge or something simple that you deal with and have come up with a trick to manage it, that may be that simple thing that is unique and could be brought forward. So leverage your friends and your coworkers to figure out what those topics might be. And they'll say, oh my gosh, yeah, you always talk about XYZ. And those are the people who know you the best. So leverage your mentors, leverage your peers, leverage your family even to figure out where you could be compiling some content for this that is unique to you and unique to this conference, that we can bring your perspective there. And we look forward to seeing you there. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly and Samantha. Those are really great tips. And I already can see like really clear tips and themes emerging from all different sharing, from Isabel to Maureen to Patty to Kelly and Samantha yourself. So I think we have very clear direction on how we can really help with our abstract. So thank you so much for sharing that. So while we have all the sharing from the speakers for today, I think beyond submitting for WE'22 conference, we are also asking you to submit that same abstract to us as well. So like what Kelly has mentioned, right? We don't have a WE local in Singapore, but we are looking at running like a conference to share those kind of abstracts as well locally for us here in Singapore. So if you are submitting to the WE'22 conference, just also drop the same email to us as well to let us know. And then maybe we can have you present at the next event as well. So, and then up next, I think we have answered some of the questions in the chat itself. Just wondering if anybody on the line also have any other questions that you'd like to unmute yourself and chat here. You can also do so at this point in time. If not, a lot of the responses are already in the chat. Perhaps it's also a good time for us to maybe do another poll, right? In the beginning, we did a poll on asking everybody if you come in with the thinking that you're going to submit an abstract. So maybe let's have that poll. Maybe we have changed your mind after hearing from all these speakers as well. So do let us know. Hey. I'm very glad that it has been very, very useful for everybody as well. So maybe you want to share the results, maybe another second more. Wow, okay, I think there's 0 no's now. So I think that is a great insight to us, and we have changed your mind. So more of us, I would like to see more of us submitting for the abstracts and hearing your sharing, down the line, either a local one or WE'22 conference. And with that, let's move on to the next slide, since we don't have much question, but we want to ask for survey though. So in the chat, I think the Micron team, the organizers, will put in a pink on sharing this feedback link. So can you guys, while you guys are here getting ready to go on to the group photos to take a photo with us, maybe you can also hop onto the link to also let us know how you feel about this session here. And also, One Link has a question. Can we submit multiple tracks to increase our chances? Yes, you can. So Kelly has answered that as well. So please click on the link to give us some feedback about it. I already asked for it. And also stay on the line. This is also open to male colleagues as well. So it's not just for women, even though it's SWE. So I would like to ask for everybody to go on your cameras. If you can, let's take a photo to commemorate today and to really, have something of a memory for all of us. So do hop onto your cameras and we can all take a quick snapshot. So change it to gallery. I think maybe we want to change it to a gallery view rather than seeing my face, just my face here. So I'm going to ask the BD team to change the view right now. Okay. Wow, it's good seeing all those faces. So how many of you are first time joiners for our professional development sessions? You can maybe just raise your hand to let us know. Oh, you have been. Oh, great. Okay, welcome. May you also come for our other sessions in the future and really take a lot of insights and learning from this as well. Okay, so BD team, are you ready to take a photo? Okay, great. Is everybody? All right, so if you are at home and you can take off your mask, big smiles.
Yes, let's take a photo now. 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay.
Great. All right, and actually we are just in time. I thought we were going to run out of time because of all the sharing, but lastly, maybe we can go back to the slides. I want to thank not just our 5 speakers for today, our friends from the Hoffman Agency, our friends from HP, our friends from BD as well, and of course to the organizing committee who have done a lot of work to pull this across. So thank you all. You know, it was, I hope it really inspired you to submit an abstract. I can't wait to hear from everybody what you submit. Maybe you might be talking about very interesting things and we can learn from you as well. So great. Until our next professional development sessions, thank you all. Please take care. Bye,
Can
everyone.
you put back the survey as well? Oh, survey, is that good? Great.
Great.